Well, everybody, I'm Kenny's Cat. Hey, everybody, good morning. I just want to do a quick impromptu live stream with you all. The reason why I do that is actually we have a kind of like a podcast kind of thing. We call it Spaces. It's going to be on X. It's going to happen in about half an hour or so. I'm going to do some chart requests too. I think people ask me about Biotech, ask me about China. I'm going to do them real quick for like 10, 15 minutes. But I do want to, if you want to find me on X, CryptoCantonCAD, if you can do that. And it's being pinned right here on my pin post. We're going to start in about half an hour. We're going to talk about Tesla, Palantir, NVIDIA, maybe talk about Bitcoin with some of my favorite people there. So if you want to join in, we're going to do that real quick. But I just want to do a couple of chart requests here. Another thing too, I did have a interview with my friend Charting Guy. I'm sorry, I was listening back and I think I probably was giving a little bit too much feedback. And the part of it is because there was a lot of lag in terms of the audio. So I was saying a lot of just to make sure he knows that I was still listening, and actually had to go in and like edit a lot of stuff out when we were having a lot of hard time with getting the audio in sync. But anyway, want to talk about Biotech here. This is XBI. A lot of people asking me about XBI, whether or not I think it's bullish or bearish. I mean, just look at the monthly chart and just look at, there's a little bit of a bullish divergence that's been happening for like more than a year. Like with price kind of go down like that, but OBV, the unbalanced volume, has been going up. So you know that this is like a lot of bullishness kind of building up, and sure enough, like it seemed to be playing out, And if you just look at Ichimoku Cloud on the monthly, it had a bullish cross that happened in March of 2024. And right now, it looks like price wants to gravitate to the bottom of the Ichimoku Cloud on the XBI, which is going to be around maybe the low 100s. That's what it looks like it wants to do. Now, you do have a horizontal zone of resistance over here that's been serving as pretty significant resistance over here a few years ago, as well as resistance throughout the last few years or so. So that might take some time to kind of break out, but I think that's going to be where the next place is going to gravitate to. This chart actually looks very, very similar to IWM, except for that it looks more bullish than IWM. And I mean, I think Biotech, you've just formed a little bit of a higher high here, and you form a higher low. I think most likely it's probably going to end up breaking above, maybe get rejected from the cloud, maybe back test the $100 range, and then maybe push into the cloud sometime, maybe over for the remainder of 2024 is going to be my most likely estimated trajectory for Biotech. If you're interested in it, it's a pretty decent risk reward if you ask me. It was probably a lot more decent risk reward when I was touching the Tenkan and Kitchen down here a few months ago, but right now it doesn't look bad. Just know that you're at resistance and that could potentially be some rejection. I'm going to look at the weekly here. The weekly also looks great. Like it reclaimed the Tenkan and Kitchen, and you had a bullish cross on the weekly here too. So there's really not much for me to say bad about it. And if I also just do the MCDX Plus, and I'm not going to be able to get to Bitfarms right now. I just want to do a quick stream because I have to go to Spaces soon. But you can see the MCDX, like there's a lot of hugely increase in Wellish momentum again, just like over here in this big giant run up. I'll see if I can get to Bitfarms real quick. But you can see there's a big giant run up over here too. So it's a pretty decent setup here. I can go to another one that a lot of people are interested in. Now, this is a little bit tricky when you're talking about ARKG, which is another way to look at, biotech, but you're talking about more riskier, smaller cap stocks that Cappy Wood has invested in or has his fund being allocated in. But it's starting to look really, really better too. Like if you look at the unbalanced volume, and you really have had this kind of bullish diversions that's really been building up for a very, very long time. You've had this curve over here. I'm going to just draw it. Like you can see that how price has just been going down, but the unbalanced volume has just been going up. That really tells me there's a lot of buying pressure behind the scene that's been going on for almost like, and this is a 2-week chart. So you're talking about almost like a year and a half or close to like 2 years, So because of that, I actually think that whenever this thing's turn around, it's going to be pretty powerful. Right now, it's looking like it's got a pretty decent base formation. I think it's going to push into the cloud pretty soon. I think it's going to look pretty decent here. So um, a couple other things. I think somebody asked me on China. If you just look at the Hang Seng, and I'm going to do the monthly here. If you look at the Hang Seng index, is finally again reclaiming the tank in the blue line over here. You have some increase in wellish momentum that's happening on the monthly. So I actually think this chart is looking pretty decent. It looks like really looks like it wants to do an Adam and Eve kind of thing. But right now it's just range bound between the Tenkan and Kijun. I would say that the risk level would be down here around like 17,200, somewhere around there. So I think that's going to be a pretty decent setup so far. This is a little bit of a higher low compared to over here. So we'll see whether or not it can really get closer to cloud, potentially even get like, a little bit of a higher high here. On the weekly chart, it's been looking pretty decent too, push all the way up, got rejected from the top of the Ichimoku cloud and came back and testing the bottom of the cloud. Right now it's just kind of range bound here a little bit, but you're talking about some increased wellish momentum here. I've been asked, I think somebody asked me about Futu. I like Futu. I drew this arrow here a while back. I really thought that whenever price went up all the way up there, I thought that was a little bit overheated. But overall, this really looks like a very, very nice and beautiful ascending triangle here. So usually these things are bullish because you're talking about price keep on hitting the supply zone up here while demand continues to be increasing, right? So like there's nothing bearish about this chart. I just thought it was a little bit overextended, and you can tell it from the Bollinger Band on the weekly here that we were a little bit overextended, and right now it's just basically retracing back to the mean where you have the booming support band right there is causing it to bounce. Can it go down a little bit further to test like a little bit of volume shelf down here around like the low 60s? Sure, it can. It can potentially break down of this booming support band and go down and go up higher, But overall, it still looks pretty good. And you look at Alibaba, that's another one that is not looking bad. The only problem with Alibaba is that it doesn't really have that, you look at Hang Seng, look at Hang Seng Index, you have some whales going in, right? Baba has really been not really that favored for some reason. And the chart actually doesn't look as good as like PDD, doesn't look as good as the other, Chinese internet AI stocks. For whatever reason, but it does look a little bit like an Adam and Eve. It does look like the 20-month moving average is flattening up. So I do think that Baba probably will turn around the corner, but it's just having a little hard time doing so. It's still underneath resistance, so you do have to be a little bit careful about it. You look at the Ichimoku cloud, we are just starting in the middle of July, and it looks like it wants to reclaim the Tenkan. We'll see whether or not we close above the blue line. If we end up closing above the blue line, I think that could also be a pretty decent setup here for Alibaba. Looking at the weekly chart, you can see that Baba is at resistance, right? Like it's trying to push into the weekly cloud, but it might be having a little bit of a hard time doing it, kind of like how it was about a couple months ago. So right now, Pinduoduo or PDD actually looks better. Like this just looks like a better technical setup in general. Although I know like some of the people that comment on my stuff here had mentioned that maybe PDD is a little bit, scary in terms of their fundamentals, in terms of the US might be changing shipping rules and things like that. But it just looks like cup and handle and another cup and handle, and it kind of back tested the handle. And it looks like it just probably want to push up higher. It does have a little bit of a resistance zone over here at the volume shelf, so it might have a little bit of harder time kind of push up a little bit further. But overall, it looks like it's just been forming higher lows and higher highs. It looks great. I don't have any concerns about it. If you want me to look at NIO, I can look at NIO real quick. I just, the whales are just equivocal on the weekly. Looks like they might be wanting to come back in a little bit. But to me, I still think that this is a little bit of a scary. You do have a very nice hammer bottom candle over here. Generally, these are pretty good bottom, but you had a few hammer candles up here that didn't really work out for NIO, right? And right now, if I look at the 20-month moving average, it's still pointing down. So price could like pretty much like 50 and 100% up, and then it might end up still getting rejected and go down further. Although if Hang Seng is looking better, maybe this is the bottom. It's hard for me to say for sure, right? Look at the Ichimoku cloud. is underneath the Tenkan. So it's really hard for me to say what it's going to do for sure. I do want to get into some of your chart requests, and I probably have to go to get ready for the space that we're going to host. And some of you asked me, like, where are you going to find it? Just go to x.com and search for my handle, Crypto Canton Cat. It's pinned right here. I can start this at any time, which I'm probably going to in about 5 before 9 o'clock. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and you guys can see a listen live button over here. So please feel free to join us. These seems to be pretty popular over on X. I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit. Bitfarms, where are you? Bitfarms. When it comes to Bitfarms, I am bullish because a couple of indicators are telling me to be bullish. One is it's above the Tenkan and Kitchen after a bullish Tenkan Kitchen cross, which is always a good sign that it's going to do well. Whales are also in. Right now, you have more than 50%, whales in on the monthly. On the weekly, you do have a little bit of a downtrend here. It's still kind of stuck in the range a little bit. You can see that price kind of got rejected here at the baseline, but whales are still significant in. You still have like 50% whale, and right now it's above the cloud, right? So everything is still saying that we're probably gonna be okay. What are some of the downside risks? Maybe like 2.2, 2.3 range, somewhere around there. But if you're breaking above that, then I think the next part is going to probably end up gravitating to, yeah, you still kind of stuck underneath this volume shelf over here. So you have a little bit of resistance up here, but you also have a lot of volume shelf support down underneath, right? So I think that 2.5, 2.3, 2.2, maybe kind of the lower end that it would end up going on the short term. But on the upper end, if it's able to break about this volume shelf, like where it's going to go, it's going to go to like $3.8. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Let me see what the Bollinger Band is saying. You might hit some resistance up in around $3 before it gets all the way up there, because the Bollinger Band is squeezing a little bit, and you're going to have a little bit of resistance here too. But let's see which way it breaks. It looks like it wants to break up based on the fact that it kind of push up like this and is trying to find some support zone over here at the volume shelf at the Fibonacci level, and at the curve over here actually looks like it bounced pretty nice at the Gann curve over here too. So we're at some pretty critical support, including the Ichimoku cloud. So I think that we're just consolidating, ranging before going up higher. So we'll see what happens with it. And then one last thing, I think somebody asked about MongoDB. I don't know this stock very well. I'm just going to pull it up and see what I say. This is probably going to be the last thing that I'm going to chart here before I go to X to start the space. I generally like to look at the monthly first. If I just look at the monthly, I do have some concerns because of declining whales. Obviously a big giant red candle here, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, right? They still look a little bit like a bear flag kind of situation. So we're not out of the woods yet, right? But if you look at the monthly Ichimoku cloud too, it also broke down underneath the cloud. You broke down underneath the Tenkan and Kitchen. So you're probably going to end up having some resistance up above. If it ends up, really to retrace back, I would say that you will probably hit some pretty strong resistance around like the low 300 range. Maybe you're like even right at 300. It's probably going to be some pretty strong resistance, but that could be like $50 gains from where it's at right now before you worry about it if you want to trade this thing, right? Yeah, Super Ichi cloud. There's also underneath a lot of resistance. Bollinger Band, the 20-month moving average is pointing up in the 300s. So there's still a potential for price to kind of break back above, because whenever you see moving averages pointing up, generally they're not going to be very strong resistance at all. So I think that it's probably going to be doing pretty decent eventually. One other thing that makes me think it's going to do decent eventually is this potentially could be a higher low compared to over here, even though we did not really form like a higher high over here. But this could actually be a higher low than over here. So let's see, like if it breaks down below, let's say like 136, that's when I really like start to get pretty worried. But I say the upside risk would be like around like 300, maybe 320, based on the Ichimoku cloud, based on the Bollinger Band, based on 20-month moving average. But it's a little bit scary. I probably wouldn't enter anything that looks like a bear flag, to be completely honest with you. That's just my personal opinion. I don't like bear flags. Um, yeah, a little bit better Welsh momentum coming in. So, but I probably would stay away because it's also underneath a lot of resistance here. You see, like 300 is going to be a pretty strong resistance zone. It might gravitate up there. It might break up away from this bear flag and might gravitate up there, but that's probably going to be a little bit more riskier. So, anyway, like not financial advice. I'm just telling you what I see. I got to go. Sorry, I know you guys want to talk about like DJT and Tesla, but I do have spaces here. I'm going to join with the guys. We're going to talk about Tesla there. I already have posted some charts from my friend Danny, and he's going to talk about it too. We're going to talk about Tesla in terms of what we think price action wise and things like that. So yeah, if you guys want to hop over to X and join us, we'll be there. I'm going to sign off from YouTube. Sorry I couldn't get to all your chart requests, but thanks so much for tuning in. You guys have a good one. Bye.